The Browns Blitz is brought to you by BigPlay.com and Cleveland Sports Talk. Now here are your hosts, Rod Bloom and Sam Maddie.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Browns Blitz. Today is March 27th, Wednesday, and Sam Maddie, my partner, is not able to be with us today. He's kind of knee-deep in work, so we're going to make up for that today with my guest. I'm going to bring him right on in here. We have former NFL and Major League Baseball player Josh Booty with us today. So how are we doing tonight, Josh?
I'm doing good, Rod. I appreciate you having me on the show, and I look forward to talking a little football with you, maybe a little baseball as well. I know there'll be some Kyler Murray stuff pop up.
That sounds good. I just kind of wanted to talk about your background a little bit. I just, looking over, because maybe not everybody remembers when you went from high school to college to playing, football and baseball and everything, but I happen to remember some of that stuff. So
it's a long time ago.
Yeah. So, you coming out of high school, let's start with the football. You were the first high school quarterback to throw for 10,000 yards.
Yeah,
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, we had we were throwing the ball in the early 90s. I went to a high school in Shreveport, Louisiana, named Evangel Christian, and we came up with the idea that we'd throw the ball 40 or 50 times a game. We'd go no huddle, and we'd go 4 and 5 wide outs, and we would try to make defenses, pay for, having to play us. And no one really threw the ball back then at the high school level. It was all ground and pound. And, when you think about all the big prolific high school teams, Friday Night Lights, Texas football, it was always run. And if they had to pass at the end of the game, they might have to. But we decided just from the get-go, let's go 5 wides. A lot of motion, a lot of trick plays, and we just did it differently, and we were able to amass a ton of yards and break all the national records at that point. Throwing and catching, and whether it was touchdowns or yardage, we were able to I guess crack those national records and keep going. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you're in high school. Your high school career kind of paralleled pretty much in years the same years, I believe, as Peyton Manning, right? Same state.
Yeah. We came out the same year. We were seniors in '94. There was another quarterback as well in the state at that point, Jake Delhomme, who played in the Super Bowl. Played in the Super Bowl for the Carolina Panthers, and he was a good friend of ours and still is. But so we all came out the same year. So there was some really good football in Louisiana, and there always is. But there's a lot of top-rated players, every year coming out. I think this year in the country, Derek Stingley was number 1 overall prospect. He signed with LSU and is there for spring ball. But every year there's 1 or 2 or 3 guys that really stick out. And that year it was a quarterback year for the state. That's
crazy. So you're not only doing this in football, you're also playing baseball in high school. And I had to look up your numbers again. I think this was your senior year. You hit 429 with 25 steals, 12 homers, and 70 at bats. So, so you guys won a state title that year?
We didn't actually win the state my senior year. We did in football, but we didn't in baseball. And
okay,
it all kind of boils down to pitching when it comes to the playoffs, and we weren't real deep. I had to pitch some, and I played shortstop, but I had to pitch some, and we just weren't real deep. So we got beat in like the state semifinals. So I didn't get to win a state title in baseball, but my senior year was fun year, and we did play some good baseball. We didn't end up winning it.
So we're going to get into the Kyler Murray talk a little bit later, but uh, things are a little bit different for you because you're coming out of high school, and I'm sure you had a lot of offers to go and play football, but you also had you had an offer, kind of, I guess you couldn't refuse to go play baseball because you were picked fifth in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of tell me about where you were at that point in your life and kind of what thoughts were going through your head as to what you were thinking about doing and your
Sure.
decision making.
Sure. I was, make a long story short, it was, I took all my 5 official visits, and they were all to schools that had great baseball programs, and so I was going to play both at the college level, or that was my thinking, was to first sign with a university where I could play both, and I took trips to Miami and Texas and Stanford and Mississippi State. Actually, Bill Walsh was at Stanford at the time, and it was a real honor to meet him. But I did all the visits, and then I ended up signing with LSU, my home state, to play shortstop, and they had just come off a national championship baseball year in '93, and a lot of the players were buddies of mine, and they were like, "You got to come play and let's win another one." So I signed to play shortstop at LSU and quarterback. But then my senior year of my senior year of baseball that spring, I did well enough to get drafted super high in the baseball draft, and went with an agent, Jeff Morad, who was a famous agent at the time. He was a partner with Lee Steinberg on the West Coast, and they're the first real mega agents. The movie Jerry Maguire was based on them, but I chose him to represent me in the draft, and he kind of positioned me perfectly to go to the Marlins and to Wayne Huizinga, who was the owner at that time, a new franchise who didn't have a lot of prospects ahead of me. And had some awesome stuff in my contract built in where I had big league call-ups, big league spring training, and stuff like that. So when I got drafted 5th overall, I said, "Hey, if y'all want me, pay me more than anybody's ever paid a player, and I'll come play. If not, I'm gonna go to LSU." Made it pretty simple, and they said, here's the signing bonus that did just that, and I hightailed it to the minor leagues.
Yeah, and your bonus was a record at that point, so I don't think anybody could blame you for the decision you made. It's pretty darn good one, I think.
Yeah, I didn't grow up with, my dad was a coach and a preacher, and I grew up, that's all I thought about was playing baseball or football, or both, and it was like, hey, I'm going to do one or the other. I might as well go do it. I mean, I'm getting a great opportunity here with a great organization. Let's go see what I can do. So I just, left Louisiana, signed a minor league deal. The next thing you know, I was in the New York Penn League in Elmira, New York, playing baseball for the Marlins in the A ball. And it was a rude awakening, that's for sure.
Yeah, I bet it was. So we come full circle. You played baseball for trying to think, what was it, three or four years?
Yeah, 4 years in the organization, and kind of did all the stops. Kane County, Illinois, Naperville, Illinois, Midwest League. I played there in A-ball. Double A was Portland, Maine in the Eastern League, and then I played some in Charlotte in Triple A, and kind of went up and down in 96, 97, 98. Was on the 97 World Series team, and then started opening day in 98. Got hurt about 3 weeks into the year. Finished the season in AAA, and then they called me in the off season, and Huizinga had sold the ball club to John Henry, who now actually owns the Red Sox and has had a lot of success being an owner. But he let me out of my contract. I wanted to go back and play at LSU, play football at LSU. I had a brother that was a receiver and doing well at LSU, and I wanted to test my game, in the SEC. I wanted to play football. I'd missed it really, really bad when I was playing minor league baseball, and I said, I'm gonna go and do this. If I don't do it now, I'm never gonna do it. So I went back and was able to enroll at LSU and play some football, man. That's how it kind of went down in 1999.
And you had some success at LSU. You played, I believe, two seasons.
2 seasons, yeah. I was able to start, for 2 seasons, the most part of 2 seasons, and the first year we didn't have much success. We struggled offensively. We had a lot of injuries on the O line and at receiver. and we didn't really click on offense. And Jerry DiNardo was our head coach at the time. He gets fired. Chancellor Emmert, who's now the president of the NCAA, was the chancellor. He made the decision to fire DiNardo, and he hired Nick Saban, and that was, maybe the best thing that ever happened to LSU from a sports standpoint, bringing in Nick Saban to change the culture.
Yeah, I would say it was a pretty good move.
It's as good as it gets, I think, in terms of college. I wish we still had him. He's such an awesome football coach, but he did change the culture of the university, and we went from not really knowing how well we do every year in the fan base to expecting championships, and that's what he did. He changed the whole culture.
Yeah, definitely. So you end up getting drafted in the 6th round by Seattle.
Yep, by Mike Holmgren, and I really thought I was going to be a second, third, fourth round guy, and it just kind of was crazy. I slipped all the way to the 6th round, and I think it was just because of maybe my age. I was a little older, and we didn't have a ton of success. I'd only played 2 years at LSU, and we hadn't, thrown for tons of yards or, TDs or anything. So, it wasn't like I was a Heisman Trophy type of candidate because we just weren't that good as a team, and I wasn't that, I didn't have that much success. So, I got drafted a little late in the football deal, and I tell people, hey, man, I know what it's like to get drafted early. I know what it's like to get drafted late and sit around. So, I mean, I've had unique opportunities to do both. But, yeah, I was 6th round to the Seahawks, and Mike Holmgren was there. That was the year he brought in Hasselbeck from Green Bay, who backed up Favre. Hasselbeck was my roommate in camp, and then they tried to trade Brock Heward away, who was a backup, and couldn't do it right before the beginning of the season. And then they put me on practice squad for a day, and I got picked up by Cleveland Browns off practice squad the first, I think, 30 minutes that I was on it. I was in Cleveland the next day with Butch Davis backing up Tim Couch for the next 3 years. So that's how I ended up in Cleveland, was that Seattle put me on practice squad, and then Butch Davis and Pete Garcia at the time, who was running the organization with assistant head coach, brought me in, and they had recruited me in Miami. I had been down there on recruiting visit, and I knew all those people. So they were guys that knew who I was.
Yeah, Josh, you look at the quarterback, we'll call it a market now. It seems like a lot of guys get a shot to start games and that. Do you feel like the quarterback position was a little bit tighter back then?
Oh, I do. Much, much tighter. And quarterbacks didn't play early. Like now they play early. The teams are just used, teams back then, it was just old school, and old school thinking. Now it's like, hey, let these guys, let the ball fly, let these quarterbacks play. They're playing, a lot of them come in now, with having played a lot of games, a lot of big games, TV games, college games, just hyped college games. And it's like they can handle the pressure of an NFL game. Back 20, 30 years ago, man, you kind of had to pay your dues. It's kind of like baseball. You got to pay your dues, and then you get a chance, And for me, it was I had to sit behind the first pick in the draft, Tim Couch, for 3 years, and he never really was hurt. And Butch Davis had to play him because he was making a ton of money, and he was a fairly decent player. His first pick overall. He's a extremely talented guy. So, it's just like you get stuck back there, and then there's nothing you can do because you can't play, and it's there is some politics behind it, but at the same time, he was the first pick. He deserves to play. He played himself into that spot. So I understood the situation, and that was it. And then Butch Davis got fired, and they really got rid of all the Tim and all the quarterbacks after that, and started over with Romeo Crennel. So it was kind of a weird time in the last 15 years have been weird times for Cleveland, but
so that's pretty much par for the course now.
Yeah, that's kind of par for the course, but it seems that they're turning things around, and it's really fun to see.
I just wanted to get your impressions of, I guess, the organization while Butch Davis was there. Maybe not just the Butch, but just kind of where the Browns organization was starting in '01 and during your tenure, and maybe
Yeah.
just your thoughts on some of the guys that you got to play with there?
Well, I really wish, you know, we we had some talent. We didn't have a lot of free agents wanting to come to Cleveland, that's for sure. But we had some talent and we had some players. I mean, God, we had a we had a pretty darn good coaching staff, to be honest with you. And Bruce Arians, who was the offensive coordinator, and Keith Butler, the linebacker coach, uh, Pisano or whatever from the Colts, he was there. And we had a lot of good coaches at the time on staff. I think that's why we were able to, well, 1 year get to the wild card, and we played the Steelers up at Heinz Field, and we lost an overtime game. But I think that the coaching staff was so good, um, that we were able to kind of overcome maybe a lack of overall talent, that we had on the team. And we had some guys that could play, but we didn't have a lot of, all pros. And there were a lot of teams that had a lot more talent than us, but we had great coaches. I mean, I think Bruce Arians is one of the best coaches I've ever been around. And I think if he would have been the head coach in Cleveland, that thing could have really taken off.
Yeah, I was going back and just looking at the records. The team was 7-9 in '01, and of course '02 is when
Yeah.
last time the team made the playoffs with the wild card at
Yeah.
9 and
And I
7.
said Pisano, but it's Chuck Pagano. And
Pagano,
that
yeah.
guy was unbelievable. And, he was a part of the staff, and then Todd Bowles was a part of the staff. I mean, we had great coaches, and I think, it was fun to go to the field every day. It's just we just didn't have tons of deep talent. We didn't have the all pro wide receiver. We didn't have an Antonio Brown or Le'Veon Bell. We didn't have those kind of guys. We didn't have Jerome Bettis and Hines Ward, but we had some guys that really loved to play football.
Yeah, I was looking over the rosters, and yeah, aside from Tim Couch, I mean, Kevin Johnson was a player a lot of people really liked.
Yeah.
Of course, William Green was a really good back for what maybe at least a couple seasons, but
Yeah.
there's really not a lot of guys on those teams that you can pick out as all-time greats or guys that had
None really. I
superlative
mean,
careers. Yeah.
I agree. I mean, we had a bunch of guys that just really liked to play. Dennis Northcutt. Um, we had. I'm trying to think of some of the guys that we had. Big Ricky Dudley, the tight end, was a pretty good player. Kennard Lang, defensive end. Gerard Warren in the middle, and D line guy. Brant Boyer at linebacker, and we did Anthony Henry at corner. I'm trying to think Corey Fuller at the other corner, who had played with Dion at Florida State. I mean, we had some guys that were talented. We just didn't have super duper all pro kind of guys. And so when we showed up, we had to earn everything because we had guys that were having to play a little bit of better. Our best player was probably our left tackle, and that was Ryan Tucker, who was a pretty darn good left tackle, who was an all pro.
Mm-hmm.
He was probably our best offensive player.
Yeah. Well, what are your memories just of being in Cleveland for those 3 years?
Oh man, I played a lot of golf.
Yeah.
I played a lot of golf in the summers, and it's so beautiful up there in the summers, and it's so bad in the winter, but it's so good in the summer because we'd go to Firestone and we'd go, Akron and all the, we'd play Canterbury on the east side and stuff like that. And we had a lot of fun, just going all over playing golf. It was always a lot of the quarterbacks, uh, playing golf and the kickers, Phil Dawson, Chris Gardocki, those guys were always with me, and we'd go golfing almost everywhere in Cleveland area and all around. And it was always fun to be, it's fun to be a part of an NFL team or any, team. That was always, it was super fun to be in the NFL and all that. There's nothing like game days. It's just, that some of the days are so cold when the season really gets going, and in November and December. Man, I remember practicing and it being so cold out there. I'm a Louisiana boy, and I've lived in Southern California and Louisiana and Miami my whole life. So I was like, whoa, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, we're getting close to April, and it's still pretty darn cold here in Ohio. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're ready for some nice weather. Let's go fast forward to the current Browns team.
hmm
What are your impressions of Baker Mayfield? I know everybody likes him now, but
Yeah.
what are
Well,
your thoughts?
I did a radio show a couple days ago, and I've done a bunch of talking about the receivers now. But I just think Baker guys want to play for him, and if you go back, and I've talked to a lot of coaches that have coached him and watched him and been around him, even like at the Manning passing academies and all that when he was in college and he was coming up and he was a counselor and everything, and they're like, this guy's got the it factor, man. He's kind of like a Drew Brees. He wants the ball in his hands. Everybody kind of looks to him. He's a leader. He's that kind of guy, and he's a guy that you want in your clubhouse. And if you're a baseball guy, a guy that kind of leads the team, sits around goofing off, and everybody loves him, and he's got everybody's back, and they got his. And I think that's what he brings to the table. Because you know what, he's not a Big Ben Roethlisberger in terms of talent. He's not Peyton Manning in terms of talent. He's not the big physical guy that can throw 75-yard strikes and stuff like that. He's just not that guy. But you don't have to be that guy to be really, really good in the NFL. And Phillip Rivers and Breeze and Russell Wilson, some of these guys have showed that you don't have to be the most talented athletically, or as big and physical and fast, as some of the others to have extreme success. And I think he's going to have success because people want to play for him. Everybody's excited about playing with Baker Mayfield now for the Cleveland Browns. So I'm excited.
Yeah, right now Drew Stanton is the backup quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah, it seemed like he was on the roster last year to mentor Baker and play if he really had to, but I don't know if they really, Tyrod was going to be the number one or the number two guy. So do you really think they're going to roll with Drew as the number two quarterback, or you think they're going to make a move?
Yeah, I don't know. I do like Drew. I wish I haven't. I've known Freddie Kitchens for a long time, since he was back at Alabama, and he was a GA to LSU when I was playing, and he coached me, and he's a great guy. But I don't know what he's going to do with that backup position. We know Baker's going to be there, and he's solid as it gets. But Drew Stanton, I like him because he played in Arizona under Bruce Arians, and Bruce reminds me a lot of Freddie Kitchens in terms of personality and type of ball coach that he is. And I just think Bruce Arians probably got Drew Stanton, all the information and, all the knowledge that he needs to be able to play in the NFL and to be a quality backup. So I think he's a guy that can do that. Baker goes out for a quarter. If Drew's got to play for a game or something because something happens to Baker here and there and he gets nicked up. I mean, I think Drew can handle it. And he's played in a lot of ball games now. And he's never had to play a full season as the quarterback, but he's gotten a lot of action in. So I think he's a reliable backup that you can count on to know what's going on. I'm sure he's been coached up. He's been coached up by one of the best in the world, and that's Bruce Arians. So I'd stick with him and say, hey, let's go, man. And if you need if we're going to have to play you, you better get ready. Week in, week out, you just never know when your time's going to come. So you're one play away, Drew. So he's a reliable backup. There's no doubt.
Well, he's certainly got the offensive players around him to make his job a little bit easier if he does have to come in and play.
That's true.
Well, I need to hear a little bit more about Freddie Kitchens now, Josh. I wasn't aware that you knew Freddie. So
yeah. Well,
I think everybody's kind of fallen in love with this guy, and I totally take everything I see as the real deal with Freddie. So just I guess whatever kind of insight you can give us.
Yeah, I just think he's a hard worker. He's a grinder. he never had the physical tools when he played, and he played the quarterback position. And I like coaches that played the quarterback position. It's like I like managers in baseball to be catchers because they've had to call games. They're in every pitch. I mean, that's what a quarterback has to do. And I think, Freddie, just his love for football, he's been an assistant for a long time. He's coached under Bruce Arians as well. I mean, Bruce Arians has a lot of tentacles now out there, and now with the Cleveland Browns, because, I mean, he's just I like Freddie. He's a consummate professional. He's a hard worker. He's a Southern boy. He knows what he wants to do. He wants to win. He'll do whatever it takes. He's going to put a good team together. They're going to work hard. I promise you, they're going to tackle and wrap up, and they're going to hit and practice. And he's old school thinking, man. He's an Alabama boy. I mean that. So I just like that about him. I'd like to play for him, and I'd love to have a chance to play for him. And I think that's what these guys see, that he's a young coach. He's hungry. He hasn't won one. He's getting his opportunity. Let's all go to work. And I think people are going to really jump on his bandwagon as much as any of these players.
Well, Josh, I mean, the Browns, they only have 2 quarterbacks, and you're about the same age as Brady right now, aren't you?
I'm a couple of years older, but I feel like I'm in good shape.
I mean, to me, I really didn't know a lot about Freddie until he took over the plays and came to Cleveland, but it said so much to me, all these coaches that wanted to come and coach with him. It just said so much about the guy.
Yeah. Well, they know he's paid his dues. I mean, he's been an assistant for a long time. He's not a young kid that's gunning from the hip. He's going to be calculated. He's going to work hard. In that division, you have to be a grown man. I mean, you know what I'm saying? On the field, off the field. I mean, Cleveland's a tough environment. I mean, the AFC Central is tough. I mean, you got to play Baltimore. You got to play Pittsburgh. You got to play Cincinnati. I mean, and you play them twice, and those games are tough, and the weather's cold, and it's windy, and it's rainy, and it's sleeting. I mean, you got to have that personality. Like you can scrap for everything, and he has done that his whole life. And so I admire what he's done, and I can't wait to see what he's gonna do.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a few of your LSU brethren here. We have Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. playing together with their coach from LSU, Adam Henry.
Mm-hmm.
What's it mean to these guys to play together and to have their coach here from college? I mean, just kind of put yourself in their position.
It's a perfect situation. I mean, they've always. They know how to work. They know how to compete. They know how to train. They've caught thousands of balls, separate, independent of one another, and together. I mean, they're perfectionists. They're competitive. This is going to bring a super competitive environment to the practice field, and that's what you want, because that's where you get better. That's where you win. You don't win on Sundays. You win on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and if you compete every day, then what do? You've seen it all. You've had to make adjustments in practice. You've practiced hard. Then the game becomes a little easier. The game becomes a little slower. And I think that's what they do. They bring that competitive advantage to the table. And, Landry's a fantastic player. He's more than a possession receiver. And then you got Odell, who can take the top off. I mean, so they complement one another. Think about now you can bring Odell across the formation and motion, and now you got them both on the same side. Or you can bring Landry across and have him run routes inside and with Odell on the outside. I mean, they're like a great tandem, and they're best buddies. So, I mean, how much fun would it be to play with your brother or your best buddy? I mean, they're brothers. And so it's going to be fun to watch as an LSU fan. 2 guys who are consummate professionals who now have been in the league a while, and they're hungry. They want to win. They want to win the big one. They want to bring something to Cleveland. So this rise that Cleveland is probably fixing to go on is going to be fun to watch, because, for us in Louisiana and LSU fans, we got 2 of our great wide receivers of all time playing on one team. On a franchise that hadn't had a winner in so long. It's just like it's fun to watch. This is a story. This is storybook type of stuff. If they could turn this thing around and go to like a Super Bowl together, I mean, this is fun stuff. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Does this relationship, does that mean that we don't have to worry about anybody being concerned about the number of targets they're getting or anything like that? Are these guys going to be happy with winning, playing together, no matter what?
If they're winning, yes. If they're losing, no.
Okay.
I mean, I just think that's the nature of the beast. I mean, these
Sure.
guys are they wanna be all pro guys. They wanna put up 1,000 yards. They want to make great catches. They want to get in the end zone. You got to want it just to get there to where they're at. I mean, there's no doubt they want it. So you got to take a little bit of the bad with all the good with these guys, because sometimes it might get a little hairy. They might not get the ball when they want it, or you might lose 2 games, 3 games in a row. Who knows what the season holds, or injuries, health. There's a lot of things that can come down the pipe that can throw the thing off, and that's why I said I was a Patriots fan, but I'm really a fan of how they've been able to win, year after year after year after year after year after year. And it's like if these guys can come together and do something special and have a 5 or 10 year run here, wouldn't it be amazing? So I think that's kind of the goal, is for these guys to play well together, play complementary football, keep pressure on the defense, because now we got all these offensive weapons. Kareem Hunt will be back the second half of the season. We've got great players, man. I mean, it's everybody needs to hold each other accountable. Freddie will be the man, and go to work. And the thing, success breeds success. They need to capitalize on, or do some things that they did last year, and just build on it. And it'll be fun to see them. Now they got more pieces to the puzzle that can help them kind of get to the top.
Yeah, and this roster's not even done being constructed yet, but just give me a real quick prediction for a record for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I say 9 or 10 wins. I think that this year people know they're coming, but again, I think they can beat you in so many ways. I think if they have a balanced offensive flow and Baker has a good second season and they stay healthy, I think they can get to 10 wins, and that's a big jump. I think getting from 7 to 10 is just a humongous jump, because if you can get 10-6, I mean, you're talking about playoffs, and you're talking about playoff run almost, for sure. So, I mean, I think that they look solid going into the year. I know they're favored now to win the division. That hasn't happened in God knows how long. And, health is a big part of it all. But I think they're going to play complementary football, and they're going to play hard-nosed defense. And that's Cleveland's had to hang its hat on defense, because they hadn't had an offense in the last 20 years. So, I think that's the real piece of the puzzle, is now how this balanced offensive flow in Baker Mayfield, how well can they really gel, early in the season, because, they want to start racking up wins.
Yeah, Josh, I think you're in a very unique position to be able to talk about Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. So let's kind of shift gears to him. And I mean, your situation was totally different. I was thinking about this a little bit, and you were coming out of high school and had a chance to go to baseball and start in the minors, and or you could have gone to college and who knew what with football. And Kyler Murray's got a chance to go real high in the NFL draft, or to take this huge bonus and go to the majors. So, what do you think about his decision-making process between those two? I
like it. I mean, I think he is in a different situation. He's a guy that's going to be a first-round football pick. Financially, most people would say, go the baseball route, longevity. I mean, look at what Mike Trout just signed. I mean, it's crazy money, big league money. It's guaranteed money, But in his situation, he's going to be an NFL quarterback, and he's going to get drafted in the first half of the first round, maybe first pick overall. I mean, to lead a franchise and play the sport you love. I mean, he's getting to the money faster. He's going to be in the show, in the NFL.
Hmm.
If you go the baseball route, you might have to go play 2, 3 minor league seasons. You got to have a good big league season or two, and then you'll get to your first contract. So I think financially, it makes more sense for him to go the NFL route. And if that's where his heart's at, you got to go where your heart's at. I don't care if baseball's paying you 3 times as much money. If football's where you want to be, and his dad's a football guy, he's a football player. I really think deep down that's what he loves to do.
Hmm.
I mean, you want to look in the mirror when you wake up every morning, brush your teeth, and be excited about where you're going and what you're doing in life. And if you're playing football and that's what you want to do, don't you think he'll be fired up to go to the field every day? But if he was,
Yeah.
if he was playing baseball and didn't and thought he should be playing football, he won't enjoy baseball and he won't have a lot of success and he might never get to that first big contract. So you got to go where your heart leads you to go, and then just make the most of it and try as hard as you can, play as smart as you can and as hard as you can, and then hopefully the money will be there.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Kyler Murray, the football player, and do you think the height is a concern with him?
Well, I would have said I'm 43. I would have said for 42 and a half years, heck yeah. I mean, height's a big deal. I just think with the emergence of the RPO, the run pass options, and the way that he's 5'10" and an eighth. I thought he was going to be 5'9". I mean,
Hmm.
Baker had some success last year. He's not real big. Russell's had success. He's not real big in Seattle. I mean, even Doug Flutie, who's a buddy of mine, he had some good success in the NFL. I mean, I just think the opportunity is better now than it would have been 10 years ago for a guy like Kyler. I mean, he would have had to go
Hmm.
to Canada and play. I don't think they were drafting 5'10" quarterbacks, 10 years ago. I think now with that emergence of that offense where they get the ball out of his hands, he can beat you with his feet. They move the pocket. They don't just drop back and sit there in a pro style. I mean, there's just so much more that they can do now. And then Watson's done well in Houston. I mean, so I think he can do it. I really do. I think he's athletic enough. He's tough as nails. He weighed in at a lot heavier and stronger than I thought he would.
Yeah.
He looks like a fine-tuned athlete, and I wouldn't have said that a year or two ago. I just think he's becoming a real real stud athlete, and he's gotten bigger and stronger, and he's physically ready to play at that level. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch.
What's your take on real quick here? Now we're going to wrap things up because you've been very kind with your time to me tonight. But just a couple words on Tim Tebow and what he's done. We're kind of drifting away from Cleveland here, but I just think that the again with your situation, what you've been through. I think it's really something what he's done with the fact that he hadn't played high school or he hadn't played since baseball since his junior year in high school. For him
Yeah,
to jump in and
pretty
really be on the
amazing.
cusp of the majors, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I know him and his family really well. I was with his brother at the Super Bowl and his sister, and we talked a lot about it. And he said he's given himself to trying to become a Major League Baseball player, and he's so athletic and he's so strong and he's so gifted and he's got the mind to make it happen. I mean, he can will stuff, and it's amazing. His mechanics were not there when he first decided he's going to sign with the Mets and go to you know to play in the minor leagues, and he's kind of built him a swing, and he's so darn strong that he's been able to get away. He was able to get away with it early, and then and now he's got the mechanics kind of going. He's hitting balls out, hitting a lot of doubles, hitting homers. I mean, he can run. I mean, he might can pull this thing off, which is just
Hmm.
crazy. I would have never thought anybody could do it. Now, even when he held a little pro day at USC and ran and did his throwing and hitting and BP and stuff for scouts, I was like, man, I don't know, man. This is one this can't be, and then he's turned it into this guy could potentially do this thing. And if he does it and pulls it off and as an everyday big league player, I mean, that, that's different. If you're everyday big league player, then just getting that call up, for a cup of coffee and selling a bunch of jerseys for the Mets. I think if he's an everyday player, we're going to sit back and say, this guy is another Bo Jackson or another Dion. I mean, he might not be as strong and as fast and physical as those guys, but he did it. I mean, he's playing big league ball, and that ain't, I mean, how many people's really played big league ball and NFL quarterback? I mean, not many.
Not many. Yeah, I think as we've all gotten to know the person that he is, I didn't really know much about him when he played college football or even with the Broncos, but just how good of a person he is. I think pretty much everybody's rooting for him. So hopefully it goes well.
I hope he can do it. I mean, like I said, it's never really been done before. I mean, I was able to get drafted and was made it to the big leagues and had some at bats, and few and far between. And then in the NFL, I was a backup. But I mean, he played in a playoff NFL game, and then if he can be an everyday player and go 5 years or something, I mean, then we'll sit back and go, Tebow's one of the all-time greatest athletes ever. If he just gets a cup of coffee from a marketing standpoint, then he did it and it's good. But man, if he can be an everyday player in the show and face the best pitchers in the world and do it for years, then I mean we'll be talking really good things about it.
Yeah, I think so. Well, Josh, I wanted to kind of give you a shot here. I kind of wanted to know about projects, anything else you have going on.
Yeah, I'm a partner in a new company called Members Travel. So if you got on memberstravel.com, it's a membership platform, but it's for travel and for trips and planes and flights and rental cars and everything. But we give the best prices in the world, and that's better than your kayaks, your Expedias. That's better than anybody. We can offer the best pricing because we have a membership package. And so I've got a lot of athletes getting involved in this thing, and we're rolling it out. But if you want to check it out, it's memberstravel.com.
Awesome. And why don't you give us your Twitter account too?
Yeah, my Twitter and Instagram's at Josh Booty 10. So it's the number 10, Josh Booty 10.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you, Josh. And
you too, Rod. I appreciate you having me, man. And let me know when you put it out there, because I'd love to listen to it or at least share it. I'll share it with a bunch of people.
We will certainly do that.
Thanks
this has been the Browns Blitz.